Welch was vice chair.
Yep.
You wanna take it away?
Daniel Evans was our chair, and he's no longer on
He's
the
no
board.
longer on the board, so you wanna kick us off?
Yep, I can kick you out. It's 6 o'clock, place to call to the meeting. Call to order and roll call.
Yep. Jerry Perkins,
Yes.
Tim Armstrong,
Yes.
Kevin Feeney,
Me, yes.
Russ Westmeyer.
Yep.
Jennifer Stover. Yep. Anthony West. Paula,
Yes.
all are present.
It says on our agenda, is there, that we need to elect our secretary for a 4-year term. I need a motion from the floor
What kind of motion do you want?
that we want her here for the next 4 years.
I motion what you just said, how's that?
Commit to it.
You good with that?
We have a motion, second. Second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, none being. Now we get down to the nitty gritty. We need to elect a chair and a vice chair. Nominations are open for. Yes, you can go right ahead.
I nominate you for our chair. You're the most experienced, eloquent, articulate, and intelligent.
I'm not sure about all that. You guys can start. Are there any other nominations? Okay, I'll take, have a motion and a second. Second, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Seeing none, vice chair, please make your appointment for vice chair.
Nominate Tim Armstrong.
Oh, yeah.
You fine.
Second.
Second, well, we have a first, a second, all those in favor of Tim, vice chair, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, being none. Okay, the next agenda item is approval of the consent of the agenda for the 27 November 23 meeting.
I'll make a motion.
Okay, we have a motion, second,
Second.
all those in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? Being none, minutes from the previous, meeting in 22 on November the 28th. We've had time to read over them, so any correction, additions, or
Isn't that,
changes?
excuse me, isn't that what we just approved with the consent agenda, was those 3 minutes?
No, that's.
Or do we go through them individually?
I just wanna make sure.
I'm looking up here, cause I just wanna make sure we do it right.
Oh, yeah,
Yeah, if you approve the consent agenda, then you approved all 3 of those items.
okay, we like that even better.
Moving right along.
We don't have to even deal with minutes then. Okay, I guess we're up for elected officials' presentations. Who would like to go first?
I think Aaron does.
Hi, I'm Erin Hardesty, I'm your new county attorney. So I just got appointed here back in July, I think. I don't know if I was acting or more official, but anyway, I've been serving since July. I came on board after Matt left, and then Andrew was appointed. Andrew got poached by the AG's office, so I was here to fill in. So I was here for 3 years prior to my last employment at the law shop. Lost my voice, I was in court this morning, sorry. So yeah, things are going well. We are fully staffed now. I've hired Travis Condor out of Marshall County, who's there as a prosecutor on domestics and sexual abuse crimes, so I was able to get him down here, which is what we really needed, somebody for the criminal law docket, felonies mostly. So yeah, fully staffed. As far as compensation goes, it's a little weird for me to make any recommendations. I've only been here since July. I do have to run again in 2024 and 2026, right, Charlie?
That's correct.
So I will tell you that it was really, really beneficial to be able to offer our new hire the salary that I was able to offer him. I don't know if we would have got someone with that much experience if we hadn't. I only had 3 applicants that I interviewed, and of those 3, he was the only one with, I think, any prosecuting experience. So I think there was one other who maybe had 6 months or so working as a prosecutor. So we don't get a ton, and I don't think that there were a ton of applicants for my position either when Andrew was hiring a deputy. So again, it was, I think the salary was great to be able to offer him. Does anybody have any questions that I can answer?
What was your role, I was catching up here a little bit, you've got How many years of experience in the county attorney's office before you ascended or descended, depending on the day, I'm sure?
So I was in the county attorney's office, Matt hired me in 2017, I went into private practice in 2020.
Okay.
So I was part-time, I did juvenile magistrate, and I did a few indictables, just filled in here and there, and then in private practice, I got quite a bit of experience representing small towns, cities, so that's been really beneficial in this position. There's a lot to the job. It's criminal prosecution and law enforcement, I would say, is our main function statutorily, but I would say I spend a lot of time responding to open records requests, asking civil questions, county management questions, a lot of stuff that maybe aren't even legal questions that I can just kind of help guide somebody into the right direction for.
Sure.
So I think that experience is
So even though you don't have a ton of experience in this position, you've had a foot in that office a reasonable amount of time?
Correct.
Thank you.
Yep.
Where's your major competition coming from in hiring people?
And hiring people, I think it kind of depends on what you're looking for. I needed somebody with criminal experience. If I was looking for somebody who had more civil experience or somebody who had more juvenile experience, those would be different kind of markets they're looking for. I would say generally the people who were applying were coming out of, I had one who was a law clerk and one who was out of private practice. I really couldn't speak to who applied for, and when I was being hired, when Andrew was hiring. I think it's a specific kind of type of attorney who's usually applying more geared toward public service. Normally, you're probably gonna make more money in private practice, but there's a lot of people kind of thinking that that's not so worth it anymore. So if they can find a position like this that's well paid, then it's an attractive position to certain types of attorneys. So as far as your question, I couldn't say what our main competition is. I think people who are attracted to this kind of work look more in a geographic area where they can work and stay close to home.
Thank you.
How many trials approximately do you do?
Indictables, like if you're talking trials in general, like traffic trials, I don't know, I'd say I probably did 10 a year maybe when I was doing the magistrate docket, but those are pretty quick and easy. As far as jury trials go, I'd say just a handful a year. There might be years where you don't have any, just kind of depends on what comes in. Sex abuse, I think, is the most likely to go, so some years we get a lot of those, some years we don't get any.
Yeah. Seems come in cycles.
Any other questions for him? Thank you.
Alright, thanks.
I'm Jason, I'm with Sheriff's Office. Been in office since 2015, I believe. Been with Sheriff's Office since 1999. Sheriff Paul Welch hired me from a bike garage. Things are going real good, real no complaints. Got a lot of support from the Board of Supervisors. Our jail's at good capacity. We're coming in around budget like we're supposed to. Got a real good track record right now. I think we got the bleeding stop with losing good employees. You asked that earlier. I would say that's probably one of our biggest, that's what keeps me up at night. It's just retaining good employees. I do believe we got that stopped with the assistance of the board. They come in, I think it was last year, did a pay adjustment that really got us back into the game. We're not losing people like we used to. Our biggest competition would be, I would say, your metro agencies, your Dallas counties, your Warren counties, and they're bigger, they got more money. Working here in your hometown also has a value. So we kind of put that in the equation, and I think we're where we need to be right now. Does that mean just sit back and not address it as we move forward? No, I mean, we're where we need to be, I believe, right now. I have no concerns other than that, really, too bad. Again, our jail's at good capacity, and that's not because we're light on crime or anything. The county attorney just does a really good job of getting them out of there, whether it be treatment or prison. We're not so much a holding facility like we used to be in the past. Mental health, I would say, is our hands down our biggest obstacle we deal with. state of Iowa, we pretend we have it, we don't. We try, we do the best with what we got, but at the end of the day, if somebody needs mental health, it's tough to get them the help they need. Now, if they're in jail, here's the flip side to that, if they're in jail, it's a little easier. We can get them up with a psychiatrist online who's out in New York or something, New Jersey, and he can prescribe medicines or help them through whatever they're going through. So we can generally get them help fairly quick in a jail setting. There are people in jail that probably need a mental house as opposed to a jail. But at the end of the day, they're still a threat to themselves or others, so they're safe where they're at. But I would say that's probably our biggest, aside from holding on to good health, is mental health is our big thing.
Still have the 48-hour mental health deal that you go to Clarinda for?
No, Corinda's done, gone. What will happen now generally is, if there's a mental health crisis, we'll take them down to the hospital, the emergency room, then they have to be medically cleared before any mental hospital will touch them. That takes 2-3 hours. Once that happens, they will try the telepsych like we do online, and sometimes that doctor can recommend, hey, this guy needs inpatient or outpatient or whatever, and then they might find a bed for him somewhere, whether it be Ames seems to be the popular one lately. We'll run them up to Mary Greeley, stuff like that. But Clarinda, no. Cherokee, no. Mount Pleasant, no. It's basically the hospitals.
All the long trips are done.
What's that?
All the long trips are done.
Pretty much. I remember running to Wisconsin before. Yeah, it can get pretty dicey. But we're managing. We're getting by. So.
How many officers today?
We're sitting at 9. We do have one part-timer now. We did pick up a part-timer who's going to help kind of stop the bleeding with the overtime and stuff like that. It's a lot easier to pay a part-timer with no benefits, $30 an hour, as opposed to a deputy at $35 an hour with benefits and all that other stuff. So the board gave me the okay to do that. So we do got a certified officer who's filling in. It's going to be minimal, but it's going to help.
Emmett. All right, Shelley Castor, County Auditor. Our office has been busy with elections this year. We've had 2 special elections. We had the city school election. All went off very well. We did post-election audits for those. They all came out clean. We got petitioned for a recount for the city of Madison. So we completed that last Tuesday. Results were exactly the same as they were on election night, so we always like to see that. My staff, they work their tails off. They do a lot for me, and I'm very appreciative of that. We are down 1 person, currently 1 full-time person. My previous first deputy left. I've yet to fill that position. We're trying to figure out, we kind of moved some things around in the office. We're trying to figure out what exactly we need for that position, whether it's an office assistant, whether we need to hire another deputy. But we really kind of wanted to see where we're at, so we're not just bringing people in just to bring in a warm body. We want to make sure that it's exactly what we need for the sake of tax dollars. So we still continue to do payroll, and we do all the claims for the county. Basically anything that comes in and out of the county touches our office at some point, as far as funding or anything like that. So we'll hit the ground running next year. We'll roll into primary and general, and before we know it, it'll be over. So short and sweet, that's all I got. Questions?
Thank you, Sean.
Anything else?
Shelley, before you sit down, I'm gonna ask everybody the same question. Where's the competition in hiring employees, good employees? And I know you've got good employees.
I have great employees, yeah. I think with anybody, our proximity to Des Moines, it kills us. I mean, people can drive to Des Moines and make more money. They can drive to Dallas County. They can drive, I mean, I'm closer to Des Moines and Earlham or Dallas County than I am to here. So I think that is really hard to try and keep people here because they can go just a short amount of miles and make a lot more money. So that's where we see. We don't get the applications that we used to. You know, you used to county jobs, you get 40 and 50 applications. We just don't see that anymore. And I get that's kind of across the board right now. That's just kind of where the economy is. But people can go elsewhere and you know, I haven't seen it so much in my office, you know, my girls are all local to Madison County, which is awesome. We love to stay here and we love being close to home. But definitely our proximity to Des Moines just kills us.
Thanks.
Yeah, you're welcome.
I'll go on behalf of supervisors, and Diane, feel free to add in whatever you want. We are almost done with building projects after what seems like 3 or 4 years. I'll be
Like a
glad
century,
not to
I'll
have a construction meeting every other week. The end is in sight on that. So then it'll just be something new, but getting ready to enter into budget season. Last year was a tough year. Honestly, I believe that 2 years ago, we were a little too aggressive in our budget cutting. And last year was kind of a makeup one, and I don't like that up and down. We kind of need to stay the course to keep things steady, and hopefully that can happen this year, and we'll move forward and just be done with building projects a little bit. You wanna add, Diane?
I agree with everything. I think we cut it hard that 1 year and then had to make it up. And we took a pretty good beating.
Yes, we did.
Well deserved.
I'm sit down, Tony.
Just kidding.
Jerry probably would have the same question for me, because we don't really, whoever's crazy enough to run. can run. But do you guys have any questions?
How's your revenue?
It's good. We're fortunate to have the growth that we have. I know it's always a challenge to want to be small town and local, and I think we will always keep that flavor, but we're close enough to Des Moines, like Shelley said, where people like to live here. So you've got the residential growth. Unfortunately, the residential growth comes with needed expenses. The thing we don't have a lot of, which would be really helpful, would be commercial growth, because they pay a higher tax level, and they don't require the services that residents do. So we're fortunate it's as good as it is. You wish it was better? Yeah, probably always.
Just driving the county in certain areas, the housing is just unbelievable.
Yeah.
All those new.
It helps, but when you build that house, there's that much more traffic on the road, there's that much more need
Exactly.
for police service, there's that much more need for ambulance service, so, and the house is assessed, taxed at half the value, so it doesn't generate like a commercial property does, it's taxed at 90% of the value.
How's it went then?
I think we should be about done with new revenue from Axford. I mean, it's helpful. We wouldn't have done this courthouse, the ambulance garage, or the nature center without the ability to TIF that revenue, so, you know, we're fortunate to have that. Be nice to have some commercial growth that was less controversial, so we'll hope the next thing to fall is that way.
Questions?
I have a statement. Logistically, I'm in St. Charles. I can drive from my home to downtown Des Moines, be in a meeting in 24 minutes. And I don't have the 99% chance of hitting a deer on the St. Charles Highway. So logistically, that does put us in kind of a crimp, because it's really a simple drive, and it is difficult.
It's good and bad. I've had the opportunity to always work in Winterset for the last 30 years, which is nice. Well, my wife worked in Des Moines, and that's worth something. It's worth a lot.
It is. I've worked in Winterset over 30 years, and I love it. I mean, I could have taken a job in West Des Moines doing the same thing I did at $15,000 more a year, but I didn't want to. I like the
So
atmosphere.
there's that middle ground there someplace. It definitely costs money, and you give up family time. I mean,
You do.
my wife always says, I'm in the car an hour and a half every day.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Anyway, thank you.
Hello, Brenda Macumber, Madison County Reporter. I have this really cool thing I printed out, but Shelley made fun of me, so. So I'm not gonna read it all.
It made me look bad.
You're gonna read all of that? Points and everything. Our office is busy right now with off-road vehicle renewals. Madison County has approximately 670 residents that have off-road vehicles, and a lot of them have multiple ones. People like their toys
Is
to
that
ride around.
four-wheelers?
It's like side-by-sides, four-wheelers, snowmobiles, off-road motorcycles.
They're work vehicles.
For some of
And
them.
that's what I told my wife.
Yes, maybe not the guy that's riding it up to our office to like renew his
No.
tags or anything, but.
It's too far.
So, we're busy with that right now. Boats are
Yes, she
not super busy right now. They're every 3 years, and we have about, 1,400 boats in Madison County, so, 1,400 customers with boats, I should say. So, and some of them have multiple of those also. Our office is kinda hit and miss on, recording documents. It varies depending on how the real estate market is doing. All the documents for any parcels or buildings come through our office before they can go to any other office. So it's really important for us to be very efficient and accurate. And I'm lucky enough to have a couple girls that I have, that are very detail oriented. And it's really important for us, if we don't have the right information in the system, realtors, title searchers, all those other places just aren't able to find it. And it's obviously, most of you know that that's really important that it gets put in there accurately. So I'm really lucky that I have people that can do that. I'm shaking, it's freaking hot in here, sorry. When we aren't busy with daily walk-ins, we are working on indexing and scanning in old documents. Right now, we are back into the 1800s on indexing and scanning, and we do this in our spare time so we don't have to hire companies to do it for us. And I recently had a sales pitch done in my office with another company that wanted to do this for us, and it was gonna be thousands and thousands of dollars. And he asked me how far back we were on scanning and indexing, and he was floored when he saw how far back we are. There's a lot of counties that are only back to like 1940s. And so if a title search has to be done all the way back to the beginning, those title searchers have to physically go to those county recorder offices and search through the books. Whereas in our office, we have a lot of them scanned in and indexed, or at least in the system, so it's easier for us to find, and then we can email them the documents. So it's saving the county money, it's saving those people from driving to our office to come and physically get those documents. So it's really awesome that we're able to do that when we aren't busy with walk-in customers. Another thing we work on is the vital statistics. We do birth, death, and marriage records, so funeral homes can electronically file when they need certified copies of death records. The state is back to 1986 for birth records, so it doesn't matter if you were born in Madison County or not. As long as you're born in the state of Iowa, you can come to our county and get a certified copy, so that saves people. And we also have ways that we can do it electronically for them if they don't want to drive to Des Moines or to Lynn County or wherever it is. So that's been an awesome thing that the state's been doing. I'm on their vital liaison committee. There's one person from each district that's on that committee. And then I'm also, we've just been busy with the DNR stuff right now. Hunting and fishing, I feel like there's not a lot of people doing that anymore. The fishing is popular, but like hunting deer tags, we've noticed those numbers aren't as high, but I think that sport is kind of going away a little bit.
We've done it all electronic.
Yeah, electronically.
Deer populations down.
Madison County quota went up. Yeah,
All outdoor sports is dying.
yeah. I feel like that part's dying, but the vehicle part of it has increased a lot. Like, we have seen a lot more off-road vehicles, like, being registered in people's names, so.
How many employees do you have?
I have two. So my girl Angie, she's my second deputy. She's been there almost 3 years. And then Jess Visser is my new girl. She's been there since January. She's been awesome. She picked up right away. Jason, do you know her?
Yeah, I do. I think we paid for her.
She worked at the sheriff's office before she came to my office, so.
You said your workload is cyclical, like the boats are every 3 years and that kind of thing, you
Yeah.
scan documents from way back when. When that's done, you can chat? 2 doesn't seem like a lot.
No, not at all. There are days where all 3 of us have to be there. Like, there's constantly people walking in the door. And then, Jess just had a baby and she was gone on maternity leave or, injuries or things like that. But it is really helpful to have all 3 of us in there. It makes the day a lot easier when we do have high traffic days, so. And to answer your question on what the issue was when we were trying to hire, I had, 23 applications? But anyways, and I interviewed 5, I believe, 4 or 5. And most of them were more worried about the money coming in their pocket than they were anything else, especially the young ones, the early 20s. I had one girl that basically told me she wasn't interested because it was $2 less an hour than what she was making in Creston. And then I asked her, I'm like, but how are your benefits? Oh, they're horrible. I paid $1,300 a month for benefits. And I'm like, do the math here. And she's like, well, no, I just need that money in my pocket. And people are not thinking about the benefits on top of it. But then there were a couple of them that they work in Des Moines and they were making $16,000 more than what a deputy position here makes. And the commute just didn't bother her. And she even had a couple kids at home. I can tell you right now, when I got hired back in 2007, I did not have kids yet, but then I was thinking about the benefits of being in Winterset and the insurance benefits alone. And that was the year I had my first kid, and my husband at the time was gone all the time. At that time, he was home every other weekend. I couldn't have imagined having to drive to Des Moines, and one of my kids had like 5 surgeries before he was 5. So if I was in Des Moines and he was getting sick all the time, I just can't imagine not working here. So the competing with the salaries in Des Moines is, I think, important for this generation that's looking for jobs, because they don't think ahead to that kind of stuff. That's just my thought on it.
What's your anticipated time frame for the scanning?
To be completely done with it?
Yeah.
We don't really have a time frame on it because it's busy work in between customers, and we're not required to be done by a certain time. Like right now, our rural deeds and our town deeds, which are most important to most people, they are indexed, completely done, back to the 1870s. Some of them back to the late 1840s, when the original entries came in from the government, things like that. They're all indexed. So if someone called and said, I'm looking for John Smith that bought land in 1850, we'd be able to find it and it would take us right to the book. Scanning and stuff, it depends on the books, but like deeds and stuff, we can email them back to 1940s. A lot of people aren't looking back that far, but some of them are doing history. We have a lot of genealogy people that come in and they want to know everybody that's owned their great grandma's house that they used to have dinner at. Like, we have a lot of those people coming in, so. We don't really have a time frame on it, to answer your question.
What would you say you expected, like,
To be
theory, if
done
you were
with it?
scanning at
Well-
your regular pace, you'd be finished?
We have about 100 mortgage books in the basement that we haven't even touched yet, and they have about 600 pages per book. So I think we're gonna be busy for a little while. Yeah. And some of our rule books, our deed books, and the other miscellaneous books are bound. And we have a fund, a records management fund that we use every year to maintain the books. If they're falling apart, obviously the ones from the 1840s that have been in and out of a lot, the pages are crumbling and falling apart. So every year we do redo a couple of those books. And as soon as we have this company come in and redo it, we start scanning and putting it in the system so it's easier to get out to people who need them. So.
Is it a fair, let me paraphrase what I think I heard.
Okay.
As far as your staffing and stuff, that your priority, of course, is taking care of your day-to-day and people walking
Yes.
in and what they need.
Yep.
And then you use downtime, if such thing exists. That's what you're using for all of this additional work that you've taken on.
Yep, that way we're not paying companies. A lot of counties will pay $5,000–6,000 to have a company come in and
Do it all.
one individual indexing and scanning these books in. We did that, it was before I came, so I think it was like 2005. The recorder at the time paid someone to come in and redo, I don't know, 5 of our books. And we're going through and indexing those now, and from the book that they scanned in and whatever, they did a horrible job. I can't imagine, I just don't know if I would trust anybody to touch the books, because sometimes they're not careful with them. But also, I don't think their accuracy of indexing of the information that we need is going to be what I would consider to be good. I don't know.
Any other questions? Next, Brandon.
Amanda DeVos, the treasurer's office. So, obviously this is my first year. We've had a lot of learning curves. Working on just getting the office working more efficiently, faster, happier, nicer, more inviting when you come into the office. I did hire 2 new gals, and the 4 girls that I have in the office right now, we really work well together. They're still learning everything, so that's kind of our challenge, as well as me trying to learn how to do my day-to-day stuff that I hadn't ever done before. But we are busy nonstop. This year they rolled out being able to electronically file titles on new vehicles as well as used vehicles to us, to try to cut down on the mailing. But the other day we had in like 80 of them electronically, so that's still us going in, pulling them, going through just like we would on a paper, but just not having to print everything. My goal is to kind of get rid of paper, because as much as we can, I feel like we've printed a lot in the past, and I just want to try to cut down on that and really start utilizing the resources on the computer that we have. I have 1 position still open, and I have posted it a couple times. It's my part-time position, and I will say that my biggest competition and the hardest part has been trying to get good people that are local. They've been all like in Dallas County or in Polk County, and I mean, they haven't just been, they're not as qualified as like the ones that you were hoping to get to work in that environment. And so that has been unfortunate, but I am happy with what we're doing right now in the office, and I think after this first year, the second year is gonna go a lot more smoother.
What's been the most substantial growing pains having so many new people all in the office?
Not having the proper training myself for my new position, because I knew what I could train, like what I did and prior, but I had no help coming into the position, so me trying to figure out what I'm supposed to do on tasks, on different things that come up throughout the year. And
how would that manifest itself to the public then?
well, I mean, it obviously doesn't always look the best. I mean, my predecessor did not want to teach me anything. I guess I have not had the best support internally.
No, I'm just asking.
Yeah, so I mean, that's my only thing. Like, I mean, I'm hoping that it doesn't come across bad, but I mean, people are gonna think what they want, I guess.
How many years did you work there before your new
So I worked, I started in 2019, and then prior I worked in insurance in Des Moines, and I worked in the treasurer's office in Polk County before that, and then the attorney's office in the Polk.
Have you reached out to ISAC or to your own local
I have.
treasurers
Yep.
programs?
Yep, and I have a few that are willing to help me, and it's been a challenge with the program we use, because I don't have I don't have much support from them, because they're new and they're learning. So then it's me waiting on them getting back to me to help me go through the new, like setting up the new year or putting in the new credits. So yeah, I reach out to them daily.
I would think ISAC would have an enormous amount of training for new elected officials.
We have our new treasurer's school in the beginning, but it's just kind of like their basic. It's not like what I would hope that they would have as well, because I would love that type of training, that they really go through what you should be doing each month and like lay it out for you. Because yeah, if someone walking in, I mean, essentially that's what I did. I walked into a big mess on day one, and I'm just here to figure it out.
Your help, you have a lot of traffic in that. I know because I own 40 junk vehicles and I'm always updating tags and stuff, and property taxes like everybody else. But it seems like you're understaffed at times. And I've noticed the gal that does the driver's license, there's been a lot of whining about that online, which I think that ransom rate should go away. I'd love for it to go away. I offered the guy money to make it go away, and he said no. But that being said, I know that you know, she's out with surgery or something, I heard.
Yep.
So that's, and when you have an office that only has a few people working, I don't know how that you would even keep up with that. So what do you need to hire more people? You have a lot of traffic there.
Yeah.
And I know you're not the only one that does, but.
No, yeah, I mean, realistically, it would be nice to have more staff. Our driver's license has been, we just haven't been doing drives right now. While Kelly's been gone, we're actually doing just as many appointments, and she's been stepping in and filling in for her. People don't like the appointment thing, but that's here to stay. I mean, that's not going away, because if we did that, it would open up the gates and everyone and their mom would come in here. Because as of right now, I'm not charging $10 for out-of-county driver's license. So they passed a law in July stating that we can charge non-county residents $10. I've waited to see kind of like what the surrounding counties have done, the treasurers have done, and I'm most likely gonna start that here in January so that we can bring in that extra revenue. But that is, I mean, that is something, I mean, yes, we're nonstop. I mean, everyone knows that. I mean, everyone has to come in there, everybody in the county has to pay their taxes, you have to pay your registration. I mean, we do it online, in person, mail it. My goal is I have the drive-through ready to be open. I just do not have enough people in the office to have 2 people at the counter all the time, and then Kelly at the driver's license issuing all the time, and then Kylie doing her daily stuff, and as well as myself. I mean, so.
Even with like appointments set up, it's still that hard to.
Yeah, because people walk in, and I mean, if you walk in without an appointment, we try to fit you in as long as, I mean, she has that opening within there. Because I mean, she still has to do other stuff on the backside, she's not just doing appointments all day.
So how far out does somebody have to schedule when you get a driver's license?
I have it open a month out. So you can do it, I mean, and they fill up quick, unfortunately. But yeah, I have it scheduled a month out is what I have it open, and then it just opens a week at a time then.
To answer your question, I overheard today, I don't think she answered your question. Their first available is December 20th. So have that.
You go on today.
If you call today, I heard the lady say December 20th to the 28th is open when you want to book it. Shall we say
Can you
Christmas?
book it online? Or
Yep,
shall-
online,
Whoa.
yep. Just go to the main Madison County page and do it.
So, no, the reason I asked that question is, you know, I've talked to some people who have said, gosh, I can't get in, my license expires, I can't get in to renew it in time, and my response has been, well, maybe you should have thought about it a little earlier, rather than wait till the last minute, because people tend to wait till the last minute.
Yep, being one of those, my license just expires.
I check every month to
I
make sure.
scheduled, and mine, I think it was 3 weeks, and I was in there last Wednesday, and I got it in time, so I mean, the appointment's there, it's just.
Well, and I think the problem is people don't understand
Yeah.
that this is how it works now, because they're used to walking in.
Mhm.
And if people wanna see what sucks, go to Polk County. That sucks.
Because they
Doesn't matter if
did,
it's titles or
I've been
license
there,
or what.
I've done that.
Ankeny did, so Ankeny is 100% by appointment, but they will take walk-ins. But people are sitting there for like 4 hours still, cause they came out to our office here the other week, and she's like, I mean, we say we'll fit them in when we can, but I mean, people are scheduling the appointments, and
The driver's license is just a piece of what you do too.
yes.
So, back to, you said you have a part-time position open?
Yes.
And it's hard to fill because of, obviously, lack of qualified applicants?
Yes.
If that was a full-time position, do you think you would be able to fill that position with somebody qualified?
I do, and I would prefer to fill it with somebody local, and that's what I would love to do, because, yeah, I'm keeping it within the counties.
Sure. But we gotta be careful, correct me if I'm wrong, people are smarter than I am, but our purview is just compensation, it's not total number of employees, that's something you have to take up with board of supervisors. We have nothing to do with that, just as, unless I'm wrong. Oh, say that again, I'm so in.
You're right. Any other questions for Amanda? Thank you. Next year, I'm on anybody else have any further questions before they walk out, or sit and begin the conversation? Being none, the next thing on the agenda is discuss salaries.
For anybody that's new to this, which I was 2 years ago, so it was like, I didn't know what the hell we were doing, truth be told, but I think that one page that Shelley sent out on the resolution of 328, on what the proposed was, the recommendation, what the current salary was last year, what the recommendation of the comp board was, and then ultimately what the board of supervisors did, to give you a frame of reference that's specific. A little bit of history might be useful. The other thing is, you know, I don't know if it's an elephant in the room, but it certainly is, you know, when the legislature changed may to shall, when it talks about salary for the sheriff's position, it puts this group in an interesting spot, and it really puts the supervisors in a horrible position, because by what the law is saying, if I'm reading it correctly, and jump in here, really is that we're supposed to be paying comparable to similar entities, whatever that is, when it comes to the sheriff, you know, and that means it's a pretty sizable jump. You look last year, he ended up with almost an $18,000 raise, which still didn't get him up to where he was supposed to be, based on the comps. And we caught some hell last year, from the public on that we used Polk County and skewed all of the stuff. We didn't. And if you read the minutes, for anybody that's in the public, to read the minutes, we made the comment that skews it, so we didn't use them. Yeah, the numbers were there, but we didn't consider that. Just point of reference. A little irritated by that, as you can tell. So anyway, that's a frame of reference coming from. One of the things that we did discuss, and those of us that have been here a couple of years anyway, you know, always looking at trying to get our county at least to the average of where we are statewide. And I shouldn't speak for everybody else. To me, Madison County is a place that people should want to be, and we wanna make it, attractive. And you understand that the people that are hiring their deputies and their assistants, it's all based on what their salary is. That again is in code, they don't have a control over what the salary is gonna be. It's gonna be a percentage of whatever their salary is. So we have to be cognizant of the big picture. I'm gonna shut up now.
And in addition to that, some of the public backlash that was out there was because, well, we didn't compare it to similar sized counties across the state. Well, that's not our hiring pool. We don't go to Lyon County or to, Mahaska, we don't go to a lot of these counties that are similar sized. We hire from the Central Iowa group, and that includes Polk County, Warren County, and Dallas County. And when we're competing with them, particularly for the deputies and the other employees in those offices, it puts us behind the 8 ball. So I looked at the resolution we had, and I looked back and say, God, I thought those proposed salaries were great. And I understand the supervisors are really hamstrung on that and get beat up more than anybody. But I feel real good about what we proposed last week.
So
I'll
really
shut
we're
up now.
So really, we're at a point of what is the approach going to be, and what do we want to do?
Comments, questions?
I can't sit quietly that well.
The main one, or I shouldn't say the main one, the one that is by code is the sheriff's position. And probably can go ahead and try to address it first, get it out of the way, cause it is unique in as much as there's legislation there. Pretty much ties our hands that we need to match or compensate that office, that it is comparable to communities that are of the same size or population, and then complementary with wages, and then you have local counties of comparable size population that you look at their wages and make a determination where they need to be.
This is a back to work thing.
Yeah. So Jason has provided 3 different cities in his proposal to give us some insight into what the wages are around, and then you have the list of the state public safety offices as far as their wages, and you have the sheet on ISAC as far as where they're at, as far as the wages and stuff, so. You have to look at from the standpoint, these wages, are 21, so these are at least 2 years old, or will be 2 years old come January. Indianola's at 125,000, their population is at 15,000, we're Madison County's at 16,700. You got Newton at 131,000 some change at 15,667. And then you've got Clyde, which is a Metro Community Police Department, 153,760, and population around 18,800. We tried to get the sheriff's position at 130,000 to try to get him up compensatory. The office, I kind of put same persons, because we're not looking at people, we're looking at the specific office, the elected official's office. Who's in there, they're gonna receive the benefit or the what have you as far as wages. We're looking at that office, so you wanna look at the standpoint that because somebody is brand new, that doesn't mean we hold them back because they're not doing the job. The job pays X amount of dollars. That office does. And consequently, then you're setting the wage for whoever will be in that position. And all of them are elected, so the public's gonna make their decisions.
I think we probably ought to talk to, for just to refresh my memory and then anybody else that needs it. Whatever is recommended to the county board of supervisors, what can you do?
We can adjust them down, but they're all by the same percentage. So if you gave the sheriff a 10% raise and the auditor a 5% raise, and we said, no, the sheriff should only get 5, that means the auditor gets 2.5.
Got it by the same percentage.
Yes, so you need to think about that when we're setting these so that you don't have our hands tied too much, because obviously we don't wanna take, let's say it's 3% for somebody and 10% for the sheriff, well, you take the 3%, start cutting that back, and you really beating them up. So I appreciate you considering that in anything that you put tonight.
Thank you.
Is it easier to do dollars?
If you're asking me, it doesn't really make a difference, because it's still gotta,
Still
if you
gonna
cut
be a-
10,000 back to
Translates
$5,000, you cut it in half.
We've done it both ways, haven't we?
Yeah.
And the other thing is, we have said not everybody has to be the same recommendation as well. I mean, besides the sheriff, there could be some delineation between all of the positions if we choose. I really am good. And I probably won't.
No, you won't. No, you won't.
Oops.
Well, I don't know, I think we gave everybody a large raise last year, I'm not so sure that we can do that this year again. I think that we don't have a choice with the sheriff, because we're told that we have to keep it at a certain point, so I guess my thought would be to put him where we need to be, and then we'll have to adjust from there. The law ties her hand on it, so.
So there's, sorry, since I'm new here, so there's really not much discussion on the sheriff.
Well, we still have to decide, but
Okay, but he is going to get a raise.
we have to get him in comparison. We set the wage whatever we want, but it has to be compensatorily, equal to or in that area of, either local chiefs of police or the state patrol or other local sheriffs around us. And they're wanting everybody to be up in an average instead of having, a sheriff that's only making 50,000, that's got a population of 8,000 people, and then you got a sheriff that's sitting over here with $120,000, and he's only got 6,000 people in it. So they're trying to get them so that they're balanced out and they're all in an equal group, because they're all doing the office.
Got it.
The legislature tried our hands on this a year ago with a law that they passed.
Right.
And there was no funding with it, they just said, you have to do this.
Change may, shall,
Well, yes.
didn't.
Yeah, and so part of the argument that I have, if it's really truly an argument, is that we look at the Newton, whatever, those places have a different demographic than we do. Even though they still have the same number of population, the jobs are not the same I don't do the job, but in my opinion, they're not the same because of the difference in the demographics and the population density. But salary wise, we don't have a choice.
So if we took the sheriff's salary this year up 10%, we would still be under those three by, I guess, by a couple $1,000s for one of them, Newton, but the others would be significantly under.
This is probably for Shelley, on this sheet that has all of the counties and.
The ISAC salaries are right,
Yeah, what you said. Every county must be dealing with the same issue with the sheriff, because if you look, unless I'm reading this incorrectly, the average salary, which would have been 2 years ago, is $113,334 across the state. Of which, if you look at that, if you were to just use that number, you know, where our sheriff is at is down $1,278. So it's actually pretty close. Everybody, point being is, and I'm not advocating cutting, we gotta get where we gotta get. I 100% agree. It's just, is it possible to do that over a 2-year period? Make a commitment. Again, I'm brainstorming here a bit, because I really do have a sensitivity to the position of that we put the supervisors in.
So a question I have also is, what's comparable? What does that really mean? To have a comparable salary? That doesn't necessarily mean to the penny, or what does that mean?
Well, and I think you articulated it pretty well, that population is a measure of comparability, but it should not necessarily be the only measure, but that's kind of where we're at. If I heard you.
Right. How many square miles are in Madison County, you know? Anybody know? I don't know. Well, there's 16 townships, right?
Yes, there are I do know that, 16
And I
townships.
think, is there 16 miles in the township? 4 by 4, aren't they?
561 square miles.
That's impressive.
Is what Google says.
I'm making a note of that.
And so they have 9
1,000
officers.
miles of rock road.
Right, yeah, they have 9 officers to patrol 500 square miles. So that's something else to still out there.
Well, especially if you're comparing it to a municipality.
Right, that has 16,000 people in 2 square miles.
Yeah, I got your point. Yeah. Somebody gonna throw a number out there?
I'm gonna ask a question, so comparing it to these Department of Public Safety employees in Madison County, what would you say the equivalent would be to the sheriff? Is there a position that would be similar?
Well, what you would
I
have,
don't know what trooper 3 and trooper, 17 or,
yeah,
Good
I don't
question,
know
I
what
don't
those
know.
are.
troop, you're looking at administrative people, so it'd be sergeant and above. Actually, if you're looking at sheriff's position, you're probably talking captain.
Those ISAC figures are from 2 years ago. So if we look at the sheriff's salary from 2 years ago, which would have been at, what, 94 and change? We were under.
Financially, we were.
That's why we did that.
Last year we boosted, but we still have a ways to go.
If you look across the county, you have 1, 2,
There was a 50%.
2 that are above average, 3, 4 that are below average. Below average, the largest one is $1,000 basically. And the sheriff is one. Below the average.
From that time.
From that time.
That time. So
really, I don't see that we're very far out of line.
No, we made significant progress last year.
Exactly.
I guess I'd like to see us continue to make some progress there, but probably not, this is just me, my opinion, probably not at a range of what it was last year. Maybe the recommendation would be, and part of me's thinking too, if say it's a $10,000, I just made that up, I'm not advocating that, just easier math. But if you had a $10,000 raise for the sheriff to keep that boosting, or put whatever number you want in there, I don't care. Then you look at each of the other individual offices, and try to get them, this is what I would like to see, try to get them up closer to what the average is, with a commitment that we always wanna get to the state average. And I did the math on all of the positions, 2 years, and I represent the auditor. And looking at that position, you know, her salary is whatever it is, the state average was 78,500 and some change. I round stuff up, because I just do. let's anticipate that state average goes up. I use 3% to try to get a more accurate number. And I think 3% is reasonable. That would put the average next year on this spreadsheet to be 80,855. So if we looked at that for the auditor in Madison County, to get up to that $80,855, which would be the projected average, would be a $3,200 and some change raise. That's how my mind works, good, bad, or indifferent. There's some logic there, and it wouldn't be as substantial of hit for the supervisors to deal with as it was last year. I'm thinking out loud. That's just one of the positions. You know, you can do whatever you want with any of them, but that's how my mind was working.
Is it inappropriate to ask the supervisors what they think?
Ask all the questions you want.
They may not answer.
If they can answer, they will, but they may not be able to.
Kevin, I would appreciate the way you're thinking on that, because like you said, the sheriff is mandated, so you try to do that as much as you can. Well, that being said, last year we took your recommendation, cut it in half, which was pretty aggressive. And that also resulted in some other people getting pretty significant raises. There were some 10%ers out there.
Yep.
Which that seems like a big number. So I think you're looking at it right as far as the sheriff is concerned. It's like, I know what we need to do. We took a big step in that direction this last year. 2 more years, can you get into that point? Probably, but by keeping it in reasonable steps, it doesn't tie our hands quite so much, if that makes sense.
That's to me.
Apparently the board had the privilege, that was a question I left with Matt, was does the board have that opportunity or privilege to be able to adjust that wage? And apparently you must have had it because you cut it by 50%.
We did. there really wasn't a black and white answer to that.
Well, and that's why I asked Matt, I said, we're bound to set that wage out there, make it comparable to all these communities and agencies and stuff, but we never did get him to answer and say, does this include the board, or are they outside that scope, and can you adjust it down?
And we did. I mean,
yes,
if you looked at it
don't know
firmly under the letter of the law,
it,
our hands were completely tied last year. Well, we didn't want to live with that, so we curtailed them by 50%.
Right. Yeah. That was the way we left that question, was whether the board had the authority to cut it after we said it, because it would no longer be compatible with.
But you took a big step in the right direction.
Yeah.
Do you want me to see?
Yes, please.
What's your question?
Well, my question was what your recommendation was, Sheriff, what you think would be
My
appropriate.
recommendation is right now, he's at 112. We have a population of 16,773. Warren's at 131,000 and they have a population of 53. Now, if our employees leave, they don't go to counties that have 17,000. They go to Warren, Dallas, Clyde. I mean, it makes sense because you can easily drive. So I think that there was a $10,000 thrown out there, I know it was just thrown out. That's gonna put him up over Warren. That's a big fight, and,
That's last year's wages.
yeah.
That doesn't include what they did.
Right.
That doesn't include what they did this last year.
I think we're seeing the fuel is down right now. I think the economy's shaky, and I think we have to live within our means and be careful. I love my staff, and I get along with everybody, and I'd love to give huge raises, but you can never raise enough to keep up with inflation. I mean, I don't think. But I wanna see good raises, and I think we have to keep up, or we'll lose good staff. Because where I live, I can go to Des Moines. All of them can. So, I don't know, I didn't answer that really. I think this is on you. You're gonna come to us with a suggestion, and it's going to be in our corner. And if it's like last year, wow.
It's a big fight.
Big fight.
We knew that when we left.
Yeah.
And we took, that was terrible.
Yeah.
But, am I glad we did it and you did it? Yes.
I think you also have to last year, but if you look at those numbers, we're still below the average. I mean, that just tells you what every county across the state did last year, is they all took those numbers high last year because of where we're at in the world, but to take a big jump like that and still be below the state average just shows it's not just us. I mean, every county got that hit last year, like they all jumped.
And getting, yeah, they did, and getting, it's really difficult, this sounds terrible, to get good employees. Like she said, you can't, they don't have any qualifications. Some of them, I can think of out here, they show up and then they decide, well, I don't really wanna work, so they quit right away. So it is really difficult to get good employees. So.
That's why I raised the question about where's the competition coming from, because like I said earlier, it's not those equal population counties across the state. It's a Des Moines metro area, and that puts us at a disadvantage.
And it's Waukee.
It
It's
is.
even Indianola.
Yeah, well, that's Des Moines
We have a
metro area.
Madison County
to me,
person
yeah.
leave Madison County and go work for Indianola.
And you don't think they poach employees, because I do.
Oh, I know
I'm
they
a genius at getting people to leave, and they do it to us too. I think it's just, I mean, if I can reach out and say, hey, come over to us, and it's getting more and more.
Well, I commuted for several years to Des Moines and then to West Des Moines. And, it wasn't a big deal. I couldn't have gotten the job I had with John Deere down here. So it was one of those things, yeah, you do it because it puts some money in your pocket. Getting back to your point about the average, that's what's depressing about it, is trying to get to the average.
You would think with that big increase last year, even when they cut it in half.
Well,
It still was 10% for me. I mean, I'll admit it, I got a 10% raise last year, but look where it still left me. And so.
And part of the problem you've got too is that there's a group that if they hear the word increase, they're gonna object.
Oh, yeah.
And they may not have any validity to their objections, but they're going to object.
Sure.
And I get that, because anytime there's an increase in cost in the county overall, it's gonna mean some type of an impact on taxes. But sometimes you just gotta bite the bullet and realize that you need the services in that county, you want the services in the county, and if you do want them and need them, then you're gonna have to pay for them.
A lot of people do not look at that. They
I
see
know
the
that.
numbers and they don't pay any attention to where if they run out their good employees and they have to end up going to Des Moines because the service is gone now. They don't see that. They see the numbers and they see the taxes and all that. They don't, when one of those services that they're getting right here in Madison County has to be shut down because we don't have the good employees, that's when they will see the importance of it.
Exactly.
I left my 4-year-old's birthday party tonight to come here, and they said, where are you going? And I told them, and they said, after the increase they got last year, I hope there's none. And I said, we should go to your job and publicly talk about it online, about what you guys do and how you do it at your job. And I wholeheartedly believe what she has said is 100% true. I don't like paying taxes. I promise you I hate more than anybody in this room.
I don't know about that.
I'm pretty bitter, but you cannot lose these people. You
Well, and I
can't.
think
And I know
some
you-
people don't realize we pay taxes too. It's not like we're exempt from paying taxes, so we understand that
Yeah.
even if we're getting raises.
Well, the other thing to look at is this was the first shot out of the gate really, when those increases came through and the Board of Supervisors was discussing them, and you had citizens complaining about them. But then you look at all of the other things that have happened this year with UAW salaries, with all these different unions that have come in and gotten 30% salary increases. That tells us that everybody's been behind it a bit. And it's not a bad thing to get people to catch up. And that's the thing that irritates me, is some people think that it's bad that we're trying to catch people up. and I just don't think that's right.
Tim Armstrong can relate to this. For about 20 years, there has been talk in the state of Iowa to divide us into 4 regions. That has been going around for years. And we have seen, and these ladies can speak to this, all of us, cuts in everything. Getting rid of judicial boards, getting rid of lots of local government, which I think is not going to work. I think we have proved in this state, when you have the 5th judicial system, that we can put people in a halfway house or in Fort Des Moines and then get them back and they do well in society. They're getting rid of all that. And I think that's a dangerous, if we don't keep up, and then the public, and it's a really small, like Jerry said, it'll be so loud and so hateful that we've given any raises, I think the outcome could be the state's gonna hear that and they'll say, okay, we'll just divide you into 4 regions and then you can go to Dallas or you can go here. I'm afraid that could happen. I wanna keep local control.
Well, you're seeing it happen with the soil offices and that's
You
happening.
are.
That's, I mean, that's
And it's
oh, yeah.
it's a
Yeah.
disaster, isn't it?
It's a total disaster.
Total
I'm so
disaster.
glad I'm retired.
Okay, so,
I just wanted to ask a Phil a question real quick. So you were talking earlier about, like, you had a lot going on last year as far as projects and construction, and so maybe this year, not as much going on. Does that matter in your budget when you're doing things like that? I mean, cause you had a lot going on last year.
We did, but from a budget standpoint, I'm not sure that really affected it,
No,
because we bonded for a
Planned for that.
portion of it, and we were fortunate, good, bad, or otherwise, that the government had some, COVID relief dollars that came down, so that our overrun on a lot of those building projects, we're able to cover with that.
Got it, okay.
Good, like I said,
It is what it is.
you, you throw money at everything, that's not necessarily the answer, but
Yeah.
fortunately, we had some money thrown at us that we're able to
Sure.
to pay those projects without affecting the
Got it.
taxpayers.
Okay.
And I assume, and I shouldn't assume, I'm guessing, in the school world, we had, if you had Pebble money or save money or whatever that was facility money, you couldn't use that for salaries, you couldn't use it, I mean, you had your own silos. Do you have those same restrictions?
With the, COVID money, initially, yes, but then they said, how are we gonna manage it? So basically, I said, if you receive less than $10 million, you can do whatever you want with it.
Yeah, but even above and beyond the COVID, Phil, the building stuff is done. Is that going to put more money back into the operating budget?
No,
guess
because we
is-
didn't use operating money to pay.
I was
for
gonna
that.
say, my guess is no, so really that being done isn't going to impact
No, it's not
your day-to-day operating.
It should be
budget.
revenue neutral.
Thank you.
So there are no restrictions on, what fund we can use for salaries. So some of our employees are paid out of our general fund. Certain ones can be paid out of general supplemental, like all elections can be paid out of general supplemental, so we use that. The rural fund we can pay, the ambulance or the sheriff, out of that, and then secondary roads is their own fund. So, but there's really, other than that, there's not really any stipulations, if that's kind of what you were asking, as far as what can be paid out of what fund, and that's something I do during the budget, is I'm looking at what our fund balances look like, and I can move myself from the general to general supplemental if I need to, and stuff like that. But as far as restrictions on funding,
Not
it's
like what we had in the school
correct.
business.
Correct, yes.
But what I also heard you say is really that, the same thing Phil said, is that all of the projects, the upgrading a facility isn't going to impact those dollars whatsoever. So the budget's not going to be different next year just because we're finally done, not finally.
In theory, you've got the general levy, which everybody in the county pays, and you've got the rural where people that aren't in unincorporated areas pay. And in theory, you try to put that money where those people use it. Like
Yes.
reality is, somebody could live in town and not really use any county services, but yet they're paying for something.
True.
So Shelley does the best she can to stick stuff in the right
Oh,
place.
yeah, no. I just didn't want a conception out there that the building is done, so wow, we're gonna have a lot of money. No.
We need to keep in mind too, that whatever we set these salaries at, that's gonna dictate what the deputies make and what the other employees in the county make.
It's a trickle down.
Yeah, it's, or, yeah,
And which is what they said is the toughest thing is,
Yeah.
they can go to town in Des Moines and make way more money. So,
So keep in mind what our salaries are, for instance, my deputies make 80% of that. So if I get a 3% raise, they get a 3% raise, so that kinda gives you an idea of where they are sitting at their salaries. And for instance, that one person that I talked to had a similar position, obviously not with the county, was working in West Des Moines making 16,000 more than what that 80% of my salary was.
And that's significant.
Yeah, it's huge.
well, somebody wanna.
Well, at least they can't complain to us about what we're getting paid, right?
Your check's in the mail.
Yeah.
Doubled from last year.
The proposal that I'll just lay out there is 2% straight across. And that basically brings everybody up to or above.
I don't think that's enough, given the circumstances of what's going on with prices that you're paying for goods, things like that. I think it puts them behind a little bit. And I understand what you're saying, that it's gonna get us up to that average. I guess I'd rather see us go with in the 4 or 5% range across the board. But
And then I'll say one more thing about that is, you're talking about the cost of goods and things. I know I never in my working career, my wife never in her working career, got a cost of living adjustment that was equal to what cost of living did.
Yep.
It doesn't happen.
The other thing, I guess, thanks for giving us good focus, at least you know, as a start. I would prefer to see it a little bit higher for a couple of reasons. One, I still think, this is just my opinion, again, take it for what it's worth, which probably isn't much, but I think we need to make a bigger commitment to keep the sheriff going, maybe $5,000 instead of 10. And then we do a 3% or a 4% raise for everybody else, so that if it does get cut, they still end up with something. Because if we go too high on the sheriff or whatever, then if that's cut, just like it was last year, then everybody's cut back. And if you get cut back 50% from a 2% raise, it's almost insulting. I mean, you'll still take it, obviously, but that's kind of insulting.
Well, I think if you went 5% across the board, that would give the sheriff a $5,600 a year raise, which is in the ballpark of what you're talking about. And
I agree, because I think you wanna be competitive with where we're at, and we're close to Des Moines, that's just the truth of it, in Dallas County, and everything's coming our direction, right? So it's just gonna get more competitive, and if we do 2%, then you may lose that competitiveness, and you lose all those employees, and then you're trying to restaff, and then you're starting from scratch and rebuilding versus staying competitive at 5%.
I'm comfortable with the 5% also. I just feel like, we have really good offices and we have really good people, and I represent Brandy, but I work with her office a lot, and some days I'm like, oh my gosh, I don't know what I would do if they weren't there and we're not so responsive, because a lot of my stuff is like, I need it like right now, and I can't wait, and they are really, really good. They do a great job, and that's the office I work with the most, and so that's what I can speak to.
I agree with her 100%.
They're all
For
really
the
good.
first time.
Put that in the minutes.
I type it in right now, and I wouldn't high five.
Well, I think those of us around this table realize how fortunate we are to have the quality of elected officials we've got. And the fact that they've been able to go out and hire people who are of equal quality. And we need to do all we can to encourage that. And I have the greatest sympathy for Aaron. I mean, my God, trying to hire lawyers at those rates, it's just gotta be, cause they can go into private practice and make a ton of money. So you're right, they've gotta have that commitment to public service, and thank God there are a few that do. But I've talked too much.
Oh, I don't have that problem.
So would you leave the sheriff's office at 5% then too?
Well, that gets him a $5,600 increase. And, the reason I mentioned that is because Kevin was talking about, you know, maybe we give the sheriff $5,000 and then give the others somewhat less. And this would accomplish that. It wouldn't get the sheriff up to the comparable as fast as perhaps we should. So I'm amenable to any changes in that. I just threw out a number to get us.
I guess my thought process was if you did like 7% for the sheriff and then they went in and cut it by 2% or you know, cut it by a third, then that 5% that we gave everyone else is gonna be down to 3.5%. You've got a little wiggle room maybe.
Well, if you do them
But
all at
it's-
5, they cut it by 2, they're gonna catch everybody by 2.
Yeah, that's true.
You know, another alternative, which I think I mentioned earlier, it's the same concept, but a little different approaches. If you look at the numbers that we have for the state averages for the 5 positions that we represent, add in 3%, which is what I suggested earlier, what I did talking about the auditor, whatever that number is, and then it's a dollar amount to get each of those people to the state average, what we anticipate the state average. For 4 of them, sheriff is I think a unique critter, because I think if you're looking for a rationale that you can hang your hat on, that's a pretty good one, I do believe. I don't know, a little different approach, it's a dollar amount instead of a percentage, and then we can come back to the sheriff if you wanna jack that a little more or less or whatever. And then Aaron is a little, the county attorney, not you, this has nothing to do with you. You're actually over the state average at this point.
Yeah, but her average, you wanna refer to her, to the additional salary survey that was included, because that ISAC salary survey, yes, that includes part-time people, so their numbers are a little bit skewed. So this is the one you need to reference, is that correct, for an accurate number for full-time?
That's the one the county attorneys association does.
Okay.
And it breaks out full-time, part-time. I think it also compares to.
What's the state average for full-time then? I could look, but I don't want to.
25,
That was last.
yeah, 125, 147 was for fiscal year 23.
125 and Aaron's at 123.
133.6 is FY 22.
That's part of the problem is we don't have real-time numbers.
Yeah.
It is. I mean, it's conjecture, but then it should get something.
And I was gonna add, to Jerry's question about the competition. For this line of work, I would say the AG's office that took Andrew, that's where they're going. I think there were, how many county attorneys that got taken? I mean, Ed Bull, Andrew Schumann.
You lost a paralegal right away and Andrew right
We
away.
lost a great paralegal. I didn't work with Carrie there, she was fantastic. The AG's office is growing and they are taking a lot of people, so I don't even know if I looked at those numbers, but that would be another one where
Okay.
people who like public service and also want more money are.
Well, it's like public service to an extent.
Right, with some perks maybe.
Yeah.
Where we at?
Well, we're at right now is, nobody's made a proposal for a motion. We need that, we need to act on it, whether we're gonna pass or move on to another suggestion or what have you, so. Somebody make a motion. Or you need more discussion?
I'll make a motion. I know that's a shock. That I'm gonna take the sheriff out of this, truthfully. It's for the 4 other elected positions. And, backtrack, but that we look at whatever the state average is on this chart, or whatever chart. We add in 3% to get the number, and then we give the raises based on whatever it takes to get them to the state average that we think will be next year. I said that like crap. I know, I said that like crap. This number here is a year old. I'm saying add 3% to that to get a more accurate what the state average will actually be as a comparison. Whatever that number is, then take whatever their current salary is, subtract it, that's the amount of raise for those 4 positions. Still lost you? Somebody else take a shot at it.
So are you gonna figure all that up?
Oh, sure. Or we could get close. I was trying to get us closer to the state average, that's the purpose of the motion. And feel free to let it die and come back with something else.
Well, we have a motion on the floor for whatever he said.
I'm confused by
So you're saying like,
There,
for the county attorney, the average was 117.7, so add 3% to get into what was probably last year's.
Yes.
And then add in another, if we say it should be another 3.5% on top of that to get to next year's.
Let me give you what Shelley's would be in the auditor, because that one I worked out, but it's the same kind, it's not tough math. It's, the state average is, on this chart for the auditor's position is 78,500. 3% of that is 2,355. So the state average, best, adding in the 3%, what we think will go up this year would be $80,855. So then you come down $80,855 minus what she currently makes is $77,652. She would get a $3,200 raise. That would get us to what we think the state average is. That was my motivation. Good, bad, or indifferent. Pick it apart. What's that?
So that works out to about 3%.
No, that one's closer to 4%.
I can say about
4.1. 4.1 is, yeah. No, I didn't look at the 3%. That wasn't what my motion includes, it's dollar amounts. You still confused?
No, I get
Okay.
it, I get it, but it's, yeah.
Yeah, you don't have to like it, I just wanna make sure, make sure you understand it. It's all good.
There's a motion on the floor, we need a second,
Or not.
or not.
It seems a complicated way to figure it out. But I guess that's not necessarily our fault or our problem. But I think you're gonna have to have it a little more black and white perhaps to get it into a motion that they can deal with. Or
If it's a concept that people think has merit, and don't hurt my feelings if you disagree, goodness sakes, that's why we're here. You know, we can do the math in 5 minutes of what each of those would be.
I guess my preference would be to go to percentage.
a lot easier.
Yeah, well,
3%.
I would suggest 5% for everybody would
We
be.
have a motion on the floor, we didn't receive a second, so we're now, didn't get your second, so now we're moving on.
So I would move that we do 5% with the exception of sheriff, and we go with 7% for sheriff. And, you know, that, obviously, the board of supervisors will look at this and make adjustments that they feel are necessary, but, that at least gives some.
Wiggle room and see what you're after.
Exactly.
Is that enough wiggle room though, if the sheriff is just at 7?
That I don't know, Jennifer.
So that makes me a little nervous for that, I guess. If we cut that in half.
Yeah.
So once again, if he's not at the state average this year, he's closer.
Progress is being made.
Correct. Forward progress.
But if they don't make any cuts, then everyone's getting 5% too. And he's getting
Correct.
7.
How often do they accept what we propose?
I would prefer to
It depends greatly on what it is.
Yeah.
I mean, I remember one year we sat down here and somebody made a motion just to get the conversation started, not thinking it was gonna go anywhere, and I don't recall what they said, but it was something kinda crazy, like 10% across the board. And there's a second, and it passed, and everybody looked at each other like, oops, I guess we're done.
And everybody went home and left it to you guys.
So, I appreciate the thought process in this, cause it gives us the numbers that are easier to work with. Last year was tough, because, we're trying to follow the code as far as the sheriff's concerned, but that still had some pretty big numbers in it, so.
Oh, yeah. All agreed.
I mean, I have no problem with taking the sheriff higher than 7%. Because again, we are mandated by code to get him to a comparable level. Now, what the definition of comparable is not included in the code, which shows the legislative mindset.
That's a loophole.
And
Yeah.
part of the other argument last year was the difference in salaries between the county attorney
Yes.
and the sheriff.
Yeah.
But can you do a 7% with just 1 and 5% with everybody else? Can we do that?
We justify that in as much as we have this obligation in our code.
Yeah.
We're not on to make same raises for everybody.
Okay, and that I didn't know for sure on that. But once again, I think that your suggestion will get him closer. And they didn't squawk at us last year, because we got him closer. So it seems to me that's a fair.
I think the point you made earlier is worth making again, is that looking strictly at population is a very simplistic way of looking at comparability. It is, I mean, it's as simple as it can get. It should be a factor, but I don't know that it should be the only
Oh, I
factor.
don't think it's the only thing, no, I agree with that.
Well,
That was my other question, was about the miles, the amount
Sure.
of coverage that they have. And I will say they do a good job. We'll see them 2 or 3 times a week, we'll see a deputy go by.
Yeah.
And maybe he's just watching me, I don't know.
He will be now.
Paul knows, I'm not gonna say.
I used to go by your place and there was only 3 of us.
I totally understand that. So, I'm totally on board with that, so.
I guess the question is, I'm sorry,
So what's your motion is 7 and 5? Everybody?
that was what I was discussing, but do we wanna go higher on the sheriff? Or does 7 and 5 work for everybody?
I mean, I feel like it works if they take that, and not
If the board of supervisors
cut from
doesn't
it,
screw it up.
Yeah, right.
No, but in the grand scheme of things, it's their decision.
Absolutely.
They're the ones that know what dollars are there that they can use.
And they're the ones that are elected to make the
It's
decision.
their decision.
Absolutely.
And they get paid to make that decision.
That's
Can
right.
you, do you go back and discuss what we discussed here?
Eventually, when we get to the budget time, because right now we don't even know what we have to work with for money.
Yeah.
So, but when we start the budget process, we generally throw these numbers in there, and we'll see where it sits. Like, oh, that's not gonna work. And then you go back to the drawing boards and start cutting.
And so my only question is if we go in that's a really good faith effort, not trying to be egregious with salaries and trying to guess where you're gonna cut or whatever, it's a really good faith effort.
I feel like that.
I would think if you went with a 7 and a 5, that would make the first round. Not saying we wouldn't cut it, but last year when it was 38 and 20, I don't think that even made the first draft.
Oh, that was tough.
Well,
That was tough.
it puts you in a less untenable situation
Yes.
anyway, when it does come to discussing the budget. So I would move that we go with 7% for the sheriff and 5% for the other elected officials, including supervisors.
Second that.
Okay, have motion second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Being none, motion carried. Now, what we need to do is,
I forgot to vote. I'm still processing. It's all good.
we need to schedule our next meeting, which will be December 2nd, 24. Need a motion for adjournment.
You need a motion to schedule or just for you?
Just Levy second for December of 24.
No motion.
That's right.
Can't go down. Motion.
Did anybody else not get their name in the minutes? That's important. You gotta get a second or something to happen.
Well, yeah, you gotta prove you were here.